Success isn't always easy to come by in the NFL. While a few franchises have the right pieces in place to contend for and win Super Bowls, other teams simply hit a wall for a certain period of time and can't find themselves getting beyond just being average. We're going to look at those teams today as we reveal the most average teams over a 3-year period during the Super Bowl era. And we will be doing that by using C-Score, a metric created by this channel that evaluates each and every team of the Super Bowl era beyond just looking at its record. For a deeper explanation about how C-Score works, be sure to check out the description of this video. We won't have any overlapping seasons on this list. If, say, the 2015 to 2017 Bears qualified, then the 2014 to 2016 Bears cannot. Neither could they from 2013 to 2015. Now, there are two ways to do this. The first is to take a team's C-score over a 3-year period and simply add them up. The closer that total is to 0, the more average that period of time is. As a hypothetical, Season 1 is a -7, Season 2 is a 4, and Season 3 is a 2.5. Add them up for a total of -0.5. The other way to do this is to take the distance a team is from 0 in each individual season and add those up. Basically, we would ignore negative numbers. Using the same hypothetical, we'd have a 7, a 4, and a 2.5 for a total of 13.5. We'll be doing this list today. The other list will be reserved for another time. Thank you for joining us today. We're ready to count these teams down. We start at number 10 with the Atlanta Falcons from 1981 to 1983. They were 3 games under 500, but were able to outscore their opponents by just under a point per game. Their collective strength of schedule was right around middle of the pack, tied for 15th out of 28 teams. Their 81 and 82 seasons essentially cancel each other out by C-score, and with a number close to 0 in 83, they check in with a combined total of 0.362. Coming off the best season in the history of their franchise, the Falcons took a step back to 7-9 in 1981, but not for lack of effort. They outscored their opponents by 71 points despite that losing record, only going 2-7 in games decided by a single possession. The opposite took place in the shortened 1982 season. They had a winning record at 5-4, but a negative point differential. I suppose what goes around comes around. They made it to the reconfigured playoffs for that season, but lost on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. 1983 was another 7-9 season, but nowhere near the level they put out in 81. This was the hardest schedule they faced within this period by far, which helped get that C-score into positive territory. But it was also the beginning of a big downturn that left them without another winning record until 1991. The Denver Broncos will take our number 9 spot with their run between 1973 and 1975. They were a single game over 500 alongside 3 ties, and were just able to pull out a positive point differential. 1973 was easily their best season since the merger, and 1974 provided a decent, if not so inspired, follow-up. The 75 season wiped out all those gains, plus a little more. That took their combined C-score down to -0.332. Denver was the AFC's highest scoring team in 73 and found their way to a winning record at 7-5-2. This being the final season the NFL didn't use overtime during the regular season. While this wasn't near good enough for a playoff spot, it certainly offered the franchise hope going forward. Instead, their record in 74 saw a tiny drop-off down to 7-6-1, and although they played a tougher schedule, their overall performance against it didn't match up to the season before. If there were 2 wildcards this season, Denver would have made the playoffs, so again, there was hope moving forward. That hope would eventually arrive, but not in 1975. They fell back under 500 at 6-8 in a season where 2 different 10-win teams couldn't make the playoffs in the AFC. The remainder of the decade saw Denver finally break through and fulfill their potential. We move ahead in time to the current decade to find our number 8 entry, the 2020 to 2022 Arizona Cardinals. They did finish under 500, but did so with a positive point differential and a slightly better than league average schedule. 2020 was a fine season with a big step forward in 2021. Then came 2022, where they lost just about everything with that near -17 C-score. They stayed above water though with a cumulative total of 0.323. After what is now known as the Hail Murray, the Cards sat at 6-3 entering the 2020 stretch run, but they went on to lose 3 in a row and 5 of their last 7 to sit at 8-8. It was a good 8-8 though, with 5 one-possession losses and a positive point differential. The 21 season offered an even better start at 7-0. Then at 10-2, they went into a tailspin, losing 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5. At 11-6, they still made the playoffs but lost out on the division. That sent them on the road against the NFC West champion Rams, where they got drilled 34-11. That tailspin continued into 2022. After a Days of Our Lives style offseason, the Cards once again ended the season dreadfully, losing their final 7 games. This time, their record coming in wasn't so great itself, finding them at 4-13 and near the cellar of the entire league. At number 7, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from 1996 to 1998. After over a decade of losing, average worked just fine for this franchise at this time, and average they were at exactly 24-24. Their negative point differential was offset by their top-level strength of schedule, as did their positive C-scores from 1997 and 98 offset one last clunker in 1996. That brought their collective C-score to 0.233. 96 was also the last season the Bucs wore their orange sickle uniforms as their primary outfit. They went 6-10 and were outscored by 72 points against a tough schedule. They did start the year at 0-5 though, so a 6-5 finish under their first-year head coach Tony Dungy gave off some signs of life. That came to fruition in their magical 1997 season. They ditched the orange sickle and rose to 10-6, their first double-digit winning season in 18 years. They even made the playoffs and won a playoff game. The Bucs were here and they were ready to make some noise. They did take a dip in 98, but nothing near their previous franchise standards. They went 8-8 and gave the Minnesota Vikings their only regular season loss of the entire season. They had established something though. An average went into the rearview mirror, soon to be followed by championship glory. Nearing the halfway point, we have the 1981 to 1983 New York Giants at number 6. They were well below 500 during this stretch with a point differential of nearly -1 per game. Yet they played a daunting schedule during this time, always in the top half of the league, including the single hardest in 1983. That proved to be the tough season in this bunch, almost entirely canceling out their positive numbers and giving them a collective C-score of 0.217. The Giants welcomed a dynamic rookie in Lawrence Taylor to their defense in 1981 and immediately turned things around, going from 4-12 to 9-7 and rising from second to last in fewest points allowed to third best. They even won a playoff game, punctuating their remarkable turnaround. The 82 season brought on the strike, and the disjointed season saw the Giants finish 4-5, never losing a game by more than 10 points. They actually tied for the 8th and final spot in the NFC playoffs with that record, but lost out on a tiebreaker. 1983 brought in new head coach Bill Parcells, and it took him some time to get things together. They went 3-12-1, but there were some positives. Outside of that top-notch schedule, they were only outscored by 80 points. They continued getting better, eventually winning a Super Bowl 3 years later in dominant fashion. Number 5 brings us to the turn of the century with the 2000 to 2002 Jacksonville Jaguars. This was an unlucky bunch. 10 games under 500, but a positive point differential of more than 1.25 points per game. The asterisk on their strength of schedule indicates the arrival of the Houston Texans in 2002, who were left out as part of this particular calculation. Never straying more than 2 points from either direction of 0 in C-score, they sit with a combined 0.163. Duplicating the immense success of the 1999 team was probably never in the cards, but the Jaguars had to be disappointed with their 7-9 finish. Especially disheartening was a 2-5 record in one-score games, leaving them with a positive point differential on the season. 2001 provided a nearly identical story. They played a tougher schedule, explaining their drop to a 6-10 record. But once again, they had a positive point differential against a poor record in one-possession games, this time sitting at 3-6. Then in 2002, they did it again. They went 6-10, outscored their opponents, going 3-8 in one-score games. In the entire Super Bowl era, 57 teams have had a winning record with a negative point differential, fewer than once per season on average. Of the other 31 NFL franchises, 4 have never suffered that fate, while the remaining 27 have never done so in back-to-back seasons. These Jaguars did it in 3 straight years. Coming in at number 4 are the 2013 to 2015 Detroit Lions. Their record, just above average at 25-23. Their point differential, just about average at around a positive third of a point per game. Their strength of schedule, just above average, right at the cutoff in fact, 16th out of 32 teams. Take it all together, and they're just above average, peaking in 2014 for a combined C-score of 0.155. Since the year 2000 is not part of the 21st century, the Lions had only achieved one winning record for the entire century. That made 7-9, especially after going 4-12 the season before, seem fairly reasonable, even after a 6-3 start. Plus, they had 2 megastars in Calvin Johnson and Ndamukong Suh. Then came 2014, where Detroit went 11-5, their best record in 23 years. They pulled off some of their old post-Thanksgiving magic to finish the year strong and make it to the playoffs. They lost under the cloud of controversy, but they showed that they were here to stay. Well, maybe not. They were right back down to 7-9 in 2015, which in fairness looks a lot better than their 1-7 start. The implementation of a rookie wage scale in 2011 came too late for the Lions, leaving them unable to build around their young roster the way teams do today. Of course, that would happen to the Lions. Our bronze medalist of average goes to the 1985 through 1987 Dallas Cowboys. Due to a canceled game in 1987, their record just ticked up above 500 at 24-23, even while they were outscored on the whole. Their schedule was above average, but not by a whole lot. It was the 87 season that did the damage though, after 2 moderately positive C-scores before it. They become only the second of 8 teams we've seen thus far to go under, with a combined C-score of negative 0.07. No franchise has put together a better top-to-bottom resume during the Super Bowl era than the Dallas Cowboys. The bulk of that was built from the start, with 20 consecutive winning seasons. 1985 was the last of them, going 10-6 and making it to the playoffs, only to get shut out by the Rams. Then came 1986. This wasn't a bad team. In fact, their C-score remained in the positive in part because of a tough schedule. But the standings don't care about that, and those listed Dallas at 7-9. It may have seemed to them that the sky was falling. Not quite yet. They officially improved their record to 7-8 in 87, but the signs of something worse were on the horizon. They played a much easier schedule this time around, and for the first time since 1964, they were outscored on the season. Something worse did come in 1988 and 89. We stay in the NFC East for our number 2 entry, the Philadelphia Eagles from 1994 to 1996. They managed a winning record during this time and managed to outscore their opponents by an entire 2 points. Their strength of schedule ranking reflects the 30 teams in the league that existed in 1994, leaving out the Panthers and Jaguars from 95 and 96. Their C-scores never strayed too far from 0, giving them a combined total of negative 0.05. That minuscule point differential over 3 seasons started right here in 1994, when Philly scored 308 points and allowed 308 points. They finished 7-9, albeit after a 7-2 start, including a 40-8 win over the 49ers that to this day I still don't comprehend. But their tough schedule left them with a barely positive C-score. Then came a better record of 10-6 in 1995, achieved under much easier conditions. Their schedule softened dramatically, and they won 6 games by a single possession, 4 by 3 points or fewer, one of those in overtime. But they're remembered for the absolute thumping they gave the Lions in the wild card round of the playoffs. They repeated their 10-6 mark in 1996, again with a relatively light schedule, but they relied less on one-score wins and were able to pull off a positive point differential. They even made it back to the playoffs, where things went much worse in a shutout loss against the 49ers on a field that looked more like Dagobah than it did San Francisco. The most average 3-year period of the entire Super Bowl era belongs to the 1969 through 1971 Green Bay Packers. It won't look like it on the surface, 4 games below 500, outscored by more than 1.5 per game, but their schedule was something else. Their second out of 26 ranking reflects the post-merger seasons of 70 and 71, with their 5th out of 16 ranking just for the 69 season. 69 was the peak season before losing ground, but not quite enough to take them underwater, with their combined C-score at 0.02. Unequivocally the team of the 60s, Green Bay stepped out of contendership upon the loss of Vince Lombardi as head coach amidst an aging roster. They did go 8-6 in 1969, with the 3rd fewest points allowed in the league, but they were no match for the Goliath that was the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL Central. Then came 1970 and the merger. With the conferences far out of balance, the NFC being the much harder of the two, the Packers played what is still to this day the hardest regular season of the entire Super Bowl era. That's how a 6-8 record with a negative 97 point differential only lands a single-digit negative C-score. Things certainly did not improve record-wise in 71, with the Pack dropping to 4-8-2. They still played a tough, but much more forgiving schedule, and didn't take it quite as hard on the chin with just a negative 24 point differential. Compared to the glory years, this period marked the beginning of what was called the gory years. But this 3-year portion was downright average, more so than any other 3-year stretch by any other franchise of the entire Super Bowl era. Taking a look at the top 10 as a whole, we can see that no franchise made more than 1 appearance. The only seasons with any overlap were 1996, the tail end for the Eagles and the beginning for the Bucks, and the 1981 through 1983 seasons, which simultaneously gave us the Falcons and the Giants. While no one was able to land exactly on 0, 3 of these entries got within 1/10 of a point. And we were able to capture at least a portion of every single decade, with the number 1 Packers just barely taking us into the 1960s. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Be sure to like and share this video, subscribe to the channel if you've yet to do so, and ding that bell in order to get notified every time we release something new. Let me know what you think about all of this. Any surprises? Someone you expected to see but didn't? Someone you didn't expect to see but did? At the beginning of the video, we talked about the 2 ways we could determine average over a 3-year period. Was this your preferred method, or do you think the other method that will be a future video is the superior way? Sound off on these topics or anything else you may have on your mind down in the comments section below. Thank you once again for joining us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.